Faith Church, hope you're well. It's Wednesday, December the 8th. Maybe we'll get some rain next day or two. I hope so. Um, I really hope that you're hanging with us and reading through Matthew this Advent. Matthew chapter 10 was the reading today. Still time to go through that and just try to pay attention to what God is speaking to you and to us through this text. I just find the Gospels explosive. Um, every it's almost too much every day that's here. Um, this particular chapter records Jesus sending out his disciples, about 70 of them or so, out into the neighboring villages to basically he authorizes and empowers them to go and do the work that he's doing. And in verse 7, he says, basically, go and proclaim this as the kingdom of heaven has come near. Um, that might be a little confusing to us, but really what he's saying is uh, God's way of doing things, the rule of God, the will of God is moving into the world. It's coming. Uh, the world has its own way of rebellion against God, and yet God's kingdom, God's way of doing things, God's life is moving into the world through Christ and what Christ has done and is doing. And our mission, really, as followers of Christ, your mission, if you're a Christian, if you're a follower of Jesus, is above all to participate in the proclamation and the coming about of this kingdom, to make clear to people with our words and with our deeds that things are changing, that God is moving to making things right in the world, and one day when Christ returns, that will all be consummated. It will all be made right again. Um, this is God's mission all the way back for us, all the way back from Genesis 2, when God makes human beings and says to them, go out into the world, you made my image, go and reflect me, cultivate the world according to my purposes. And through Christ now this is happening. It's our main job in this life, above everything else. When we go out and share with people, with our words and with our deeds, the reality of God's kingdom through Christ, there's going to be two opposite responses. Some people will embrace this message and receive Christ and seek after him. And Jesus is clear when that happens, we are to extend peace to them because there is peace. Christ came to bring peace between us and God, and also between us one to another. And those who embrace the message of God's kingdom come near will begin to live into that peace, that shalom life, not just absence of conflict, but really the flourishing of life that God intends for those who would trust him. The other reaction is that some people, many people, will reject this message. They will say, I don't believe God's kingdom is coming, and even if it is, I want nothing to do with it. I want to keep living in my kingdom. I want to live life according to my terms. And Jesus is really clear that they will not experience peace. In fact, those we meet who reject this message, he says, wipe the dust off your feet and move on down the road. Um, there's a really popular phrase these days when people are marching or protesting against justice, and the phrase goes like this: no justice, no peace. And there's different ways people mean that, but I think what Jesus is saying here is no Jesus, no peace. There's not going to be peace in this world, peace between people and God and peace between one another, until we receive Christ and allow him to begin to work his kingdom in us and through us. We should not be surprised when we go and represent Christ in this world that we will face maybe not quite persecution as Americans in this time, but we will face rejection. We will face, in fact, for many people today, being a Christian is actually offensive, that we would follow Christ and faithfully do the things and teach the things that he says. And we should not be surprised by this. Jesus says we are to acknowledge him. He's pretty hard. He says, if you don't acknowledge me, I won't acknowledge you. We have to go and represent Christ well. Um, Ultimately, remembering that we're not here to please humankind. We're not here to please other people. We're here to please Christ. Some people would be pleased with the message, others won't. But it's our mission to proclaim this message. It reminds me of what Jesus teaches earlier on in Matthew, that we, the church, his followers, we're the salt, and we must not lose our saltiness, because if we do, we're good for nothing. We're put in this world to influence the world, to help the world to become what otherwise it can't become. That is God's mission for us. Um, I hope you'll think about these things. I'd love to hear at some point what you're learning from Matthew here and from this account of Jesus' life. Each day for me, again, is just full. It's just a lot there. So wherever you are today, I hope you're well. May you know the love of God our Father, the grace of Christ his Son, and the presence, the fellowship, the community of the Holy Spirit. Peace.